Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Amma ba'd, we continue to page 39, and inshallah we will finish before Ramadan. So we will try and get up to the last chapter today, and then finish the last chapter the coming week. So strictly no questions until the end of the lesson, inshallah. Page 39, maxim number 9. If two acts of worship from the same type come together and carrying them both out is the same, then it is sufficient to do one of them. Yeah, and if you have two acts of worship and these are the exact same, there's no difference between them, nor are they intended for themselves individually, and we'll explain what that means when we get to the examples, inshallah. It's the same act of worship, then if you do one of them, it suffices for the other one as well. So you don't have to do two acts of worship, you can combine the intentions. And this will happen a lot, inshallah, azza wa jal, in your life. And the more that you know, the more that you're able to implement. And the more that you're able to implement, obviously, the higher rewards and the better rewards you'll get, and the easier the religion will become for you. And this is part of the meaning of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that whoever treads a path in search of knowledge, Allah will make his path to Jannah easy for him. Part of that meaning is that you will learn how to do things which bring about much reward, and it only requires little or less action from you. This occurs in two ways. Number one is able to achieve two acts of worship by carrying out one action. In this case, it is stipulated that one intends both actions together, according to what is popularly held by the scholars. Examples of it include, so you have to have the intention. The main thing is that you have to have the intention for both of these acts of worship. Whoever is in the state of major and minor impurity, then the Hanbali madhab affirms that it is sufficient for him to carry out the major purification, that is the ghusl, to cleanse himself from both types of impurity. So if you do ghusl in the Hanbali madhab, if you do ghusl and it's to remove the major impurity, then automatically the minor impurity also is lifted. So if a person, for example, the day of Friday, he woke up, he was intimate with his spouse, and so he intended that he's going to do ghusl from janaba, then after he does the ghusl, even if he's done the bare minimum, he had the intention, he washed his private parts, his mouth and his nose, and he washed his whole body. Even if he didn't do the actual wudu, when he walks out, he has wudu. The major impurity was lifted, the minor impurity was there. And it's not just limited to two, it can have multiple intentions. So if he purified from janaba, and he wanted to do the minor purity, he wanted to cleanse himself from minor impurity, and he have wudu, and he wanted to do the sunnah ghusl for the day of Friday. He intends them all, he gets rewarded for all of them. He doesn't have to do three separate things. Ghusl, then wudu, then another ghusl. He doesn't have to do that. Okay, he does the one ghusl because it's the same act with the three intentions, and all of them accounted for him. Another example for the pilgrim who intended to combine Hajj and Umrah, that is Qiran form of Hajj. According to the popular held position in the madhab, it is sufficient for him to carry out one set of tawaf and sa'i. Hajj, there's three types of Hajj. Number one, ifrad, where you only go to Hajj by itself. The second one is Qiran, where you do Hajj and Umrah together. The other one is tamattu'. You do Umrah and then you do Hajj. So if a person is doing Qiran, Hajj and Umrah together, then the intention is for Hajj and Umrah, so you get rewarded for Hajj and Umrah, even though the tawaf and the sa'i is only one. Whereas if you were to do tamattu', you would do Umrah, and then you do a Hajj after that, complete Umrah and then a complete Hajj. So the intention is one, so the action only needs to be one. The more you study fiqh, the easier this will become, inshallah. The less you know of fiqh, the harder this will become. Okay? Another example is when you come into the masjid and you hear the adhan, like now for example Maghrib, you heard the adhan and you walked into the masjid. So you want to pray what? Tahiyyat al-masjid. But you also have a sunnah for hearing the adhan. So it's 2 rak'at, it's just 2 rak'at of nafil for each one. Because it's the same act of worship for all of them, you can combine the intention. So you can pray Tahiyyat al-Masjid also with the intention of hearing the adhan. If you made wudu, you can also add intention for making wudu. Let's say it was Dhuhr and you want to add the intention for Sunnah before. You can also add the intention for Sunnah before. If you want to pray Istikhara, then you can also add the intention for Istikhara. Because they only require one act of worship. It's the same 2 rak'at. All of them can be joined together. When does it have to be separated? When the act of worship is wanted for itself. So for example, what's the Sunnah? What's the number of rak'at for Sunnah before Dhuhr? 4. Okay, on the opinion that it's 4 and not 2. Let's just say 4 for now. 2 and 2. Can you pray 2 rak'at and say that's my intention for this Sunnah and the next Sunnah? No. Obviously not. Why? Because every single one is wanted for itself in that case. As for the other ones, then it doesn't have to be for itself. You can join it with other intentions and there's no issue with that. And again, the more you study fiqh, the easier that will become, inshallah. But هلا strictly, no questions until after خلاص, huh? Allah يجزيك الخير. Number 2, the other type of joining the intention or joining the acts of worship. Number 2, one is able to achieve one of the 2 acts of worship by intention and the other act is waived thereby. Yani you don't have to do it. It would have done it, but because another act of worship came in place, so you don't have to do it anymore. Example, when entering a masjid and the call to commence the prayer in congregation is announced, iqamah. Then the prayer of entering the masjid, the tahiyyat al-masjid, is waived when one joins the congregation of prayer. So when you walk into the masjid, the sunnah is to do what? Tahiyyat al-masjid. They're praying jama'ah and you join them. What happens with tahiyyat al-masjid? It's gone. Why? Because you've already prayed now the obligatory prayer. So you don't have to, after the fard, get up and pray tahiyyat al-masjid again. No. Khalas, you prayed with the jama'ah. The tahiyyat al-masjid is waived because you've already prayed. When a pilgrim intending Umrah arrives in Mecca, he may begin with the tawaf of Umrah, and the tawaf of arrival, al-Qudum, is waived from him. From the etiquette of entering Mecca is that you do tawaf. This is from the etiquette. But if a person is going to Mecca to do Umrah, so when he gets there, he already intends that he's going to do the tawaf for Umrah, and it's going to suffice him for the etiquette, for the sunnah of doing tawaf when he first enter Mecca. Khalas, he done the act, and he doesn't have to do it 14 times. Khalas, the 7 times for Umrah is enough. The other one is waived. If a Muslim finds the Imam in ruku', the bowing position, and he utters the commencement of the prayer, which is signaled by saying Allahu Akbar, Takbirat al-Ihram, then uttering Allahu Akbar before making ruku' is waived. This is according to the popular held opinion of the scholars. If a person entered the salah, entered the masjid, and they're already in ruku', and he said Allahu Akbar to enter the salah, and then he forgot or he didn't say Allahu Akbar when he went to the ruku' position, is his prayer correct? Yes or no? Yes. When is it not correct? No. When is it not correct? If he comes in and he joins the prayer in the ruku' position, when is it not correct?
If the sheikh doesn't call it in. If the imam doesn't call it out.
If he intends it for it to be the ruku'.
Good. When is it not waived? When is salah not correct? If he comes to join and he's intended Allahu Akbar for the movement of ruku'. So he comes in and says Allahu Akbar, not for entering the prayer but for ruku'. Why? Because not for you to enter the prayer you need Takbirat al-Ihram. For those that studied fiqh, for you remember a few years ago, from the pillars of the salah is Takbirat al-Ihram. When you come in, Allahu Akbar to enter the prayer. If you don't say Allahu Akbar with the intention of entering the prayer, then khalas, you could do all of the action, doesn't mean anything. So if you've come in and said Allahu Akbar, he entered, and then you went into ruku', it's fine. Even if you forgot to say Allahu Akbar. Because what's important is the initial takbir. But if you came in and you said Allahu Akbar intending ruku', then it's not counted for you, and you have to repeat your prayer if a person fall into that mistake. This is a big one. If Eid and Friday, Jumu'ah on the same day, then it is sufficient to attend one of the 2 prayers. This is طبعا a matter of difference of opinion. The ulama that say Eid and Jumu'ah are intended for the same thing, the congregation of the Muslims. So if you already joined the Eid prayer and it was on a Friday, then you fulfilled the want of the Sharia, which is to congregate on that day. Since you congregated on that day, khalas, you don't need to come back for Jumu'ah because you've already fulfilled the purpose. So Jumu'ah is waived off you. You don't have to come. But if you didn't come for Eid, then obviously Jumu'ah still remains an obligation upon you. And if you go to both, you get rewarded. It's not like if you do one, you don't do the other. You can still do it and you still get rewarded for it. But in terms of the obligation of it, is not an obligation upon you, then it's not an obligation upon you to pray Jum'ah if you prayed. Hey, this is a matter of difference of opinion. If the time of sacrifice on Eid al-Adha and the ritual sacrifice of an animal on the occasion of a child's birth, al-aqiqah, coincide, then the aqiqah takes the place of the udhiyah, the Eid sacrifice. So if a person, for example, their wife gave birth and they have to do the aqiqah, and it was at the same time of the udhiyah, and they done the aqiqah in place of the udhiyah, then they get rewarded for it and it's sufficient for them. They fulfilled the sunnah of slaughtering a sheep. They don't have to do two separate sheep, or if it's a case of a boy, a third separate sheep. Likewise, if the reasons which obligate one to offer expiation come together and overlap in matters of making an oath, hajj, fasting, jihad, etc., then if one carries out the expiation for one reason, it takes place and absolves him from the other expiations due. This one I have to clarify, so don't worry about this one. This one I have to clarify. This one is simple and it just talks about the joining of intentions in the one act of worship. Inshallah, not too hard. The main one that you're going to get is with the salawat, like we said. That's one that you can implement in your day-to-day life. Al-qawaid al-ashira al-ibratu bil-ghalib wa la ibrata bin-nadir. This is a very important one, and this is one of my favorite rules, favorite qawaid fiqhiyyah, especially when it comes to an-nawazil, the new matters. Why? Because a lot of people, they like to argue and debate matters depending on their circumstance. And this rule removes that reality from them. It's not about how something affects you as an individual, but how it affects the majority of people. For example, alcohol. Is it possible that a person could drink alcohol and he doesn't get drunk and it doesn't harm him? And is it possible for one person? Yes, of course it's possible. The majority of people, no. So the ruling came for the majority of people, not the individual or the rare cases. Same thing with, for example, gambling. Is it possible for people to gamble responsibly? One person he gambles 1% of his wealth, or just for fun. It's possible. But the majority of people, no, it becomes harmful for them. So the Sharia made it haram on everyone. Even if you as an individual, it's fine. Because, think about it, the Sharia is very wise. So it's something you have to think just a little bit to get to the wisdom of the Sharia. Who's going to stop who when something's haram? If one person says, I can drink alcohol and I'm not going to cause any problems to myself or others. Another person says, yeah, I can do the same. Who's going to stop? Brother, you can't hold your alcohol. You do get drunk, you do cause X, Y, Z. Who's going to stop that person? Same thing with gambling. How are you going to stop the person? Same thing with zina. Same thing with not wearing hijab. Same thing with anything that's haram. Who's going to stop one individual from not being harmful where other people can do responsibly? So the Sharia didn't leave that up to the people. It made a blanket rule. This is haram. Just like when things are halal, it's because the majority of the time there's no problem to the majority of people. Even if for some people may be harmful. Like honey, for example. Honey for the majority of people is healthy. It's recommended. For some people it may be, again, they may have adverse reactions from it. Either allergic reactions or possibly with their diabetes. It's recommended not to take from it. These are specific cases. These are rare. These are the exception to the rule. The majority of people, it's fine. Same thing with red meat. The majority of people, it's fine. Certain people, there's cholesterol. So they're meant to avoid it. If the majority, there's no problem, then you'll find it's halal, even if the exception has a problem with it. Come to the new matters, okay? And this is where a lot of people, they like to argue and debate, and they try and talk about, but we're different and I can handle, something like steroids. For the majority of people, steroid use is harmful, and it's got a lot of side effects. Now, if a person tells you, okay, but Sheikh, if I only use it for 3 months, and I only take 1 meal a week, and I do it with the supervision of the doctors, I'm going to be fine. We say, al-ibratu bil-ghalib wa la ibrata bin-nadir. The ruling is for the majority, and we're not worried about the exception to the rule. If you, mashallah, can do it healthy, doesn't make it halal for you. What's the general rule? That it's haram. Why? Because for the majority of people, it's going to be harmful. And again, medicines, like with new things, medicines. If for the majority of people, this medicine has no major issues, But one person out of a million died from a heart attack of it. Do we look at that one person died from a heart attack and say it's haram for everyone else? No, because that's an exception to the rule. Okay? Nice and simple, but very important, especially when it comes to new matters. This means that issues that agree in routine and reason, but differ in some circumstances whereby a legislated reason cannot be found for it, then in such cases, the general ruling is adhered to, even if there is no legislated reason. And the new matters. Someone says to you, okay, show me in the Sharia where it says stories are haram. We use the general principles, even if there isn't specific evidence. Traveling demonstrates this. Many permits are legislated with respect to traveling because it is considered a kind of hardship, such as shortening the prayers and combining prayers, breaking a fast, etc. As such, if a traveler does not find any difficulty in traveling at all, it is not said to him that he is not allowed any of the permits of traveling due to the absence of the rightful reason for such permits. Rather, all of the permits of traveling are permissible for him to take in conjunction with exceptional circumstances being considered by general rulings. Let's say a person, we say to him, you're allowed to break your fast when you're traveling. You're allowed to shorten the prayers and combine the prayers when you're traveling. And it's only because you're traveling. He says, okay, I don't have any hardship in it. So, not a person, that person, usually someone else that says, yeah, but Sheikh, there's no hardship anymore. And even if that person went in a Rolls Royce from his house to the airport, and they wheelchaired him in to first class, and he had the time of his life from here to wherever he's going, and he had no hardship, 3 people feeding him grapes, no hardship whatsoever, do we still say to him, you're allowed to break your fast and shorten your prayers and combine your prayers? Yes. Why? Because it's linked to travel itself. Linked to travel. And for the majority of people, initially, for the majority of people, there is a hardship in travel. Even if it's something easy, but the stress of it, the preparation of it, the time that it takes, there is still a hardship in travel. So even if you, as an exception, there's no hardship in it, you can choose if you want not to break your fast. You can choose if you want not to combine your prayers. That's you, even if you went against the sunnah. But that's your choice. That's your choice as an individual. But to say a person is not allowed to do it because there's no hardship in it, for him as an individual, la. We say, al-ibratu bil-ghalib. What's taken into consideration is the majority of people, and for the majority of people there is hardship. That's where the ruling came in. So we're not worried about the exceptions to the rule. Likewise, our resident combining 2 congregational prayers due to it raining, this is permissible for whoever is in the masjid, home, and whose way to the masjid is a roofed passage. Let's say we come and it's the days that were raining, they're combining Maghrib and Isha. A person's here at Maghrib time, he says, Sheikh, I live right here next door and it's sheltered. From here outside it's sheltered. So I'm not going to be affected by the rain at all. We say to him, you can still join the prayers. Why? Because who's taken into consideration? The majority of people, not you as an individual. Simple. The same applies, طبعا, only in the masjid. Okay, only in the masjid, not at home. The same applies to forbidden matters which are forbidden due to their harm. Suppose the person is found who is not harmed by them, they are still forbidden to him just as they are to others. This is a very important rule, Allah. This is a very important rule. Because you have a lot of people, their arrogance and their ignorance tells them, okay, but I'm not going to use it for bad, or I'm not going to do bad with it. Or like boys talking to girls, girls talking to boys. They tell you, Sheikh, I'm going to go talk to for marriage, and I'm not going to do anything haram. We're not going to meet up, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do anything haram. We say, okay, but it's still haram. Why? Because the ruling came for the majority of people. The ruling came for the majority of people, and the majority of people, they're not going to talk only in the halal. It's going to lead to haram. So the ruling is that it's haram. Jayyid? It happens all the time, subhanallah. And عاد بقى نفسر. طيب. القاعدة الحادية عشرة اليقين لا يزول بالشك. Certainty is not removed by doubt. This is a very important fiqh principle, and it's one that you're going to build a lot of Islamic rulings on. That is, when a person verifies a matter, then they're certain about a matter, then falls into doubt during it, is the matter no longer verified? The basic rule is the verified matter remains as it is, and therefore the matter remains as the verification first indicated. And if you have a ruling, and you're certain about that ruling does not change except with certainty. I am 100% sure at Maghrib I had wudu. 100% sure, Maghrib I had wudu. Isha time comes. Did I lose my wudu or not? I can't remember. So what am I certain about? I have wudu. What am I doubtful of? If I lost it or not. So what do I go back to? Certainty. I can't go back to certainty. Always you go back to certainty. And the only time you move away from certainty is if certainty comes. Okay? A person, for example, has waswas. I'm praying and they felt that they lost their wudu. They felt something in their stomach or towards their rear end, akramakumullah, and they say, did I lose my wudu? Yes or no? So they're not sure. We say to this person, what do we advise this person? Continue. Why? Because you're certain that you had wudu and you're doubtful whether you lost your wudu or not. That a person 100% is praying he's got wudu, he 100% knows he let gas out, even though he didn't hear anything, nor did he smell anything. But he's 100% sure he let wind out. What do you tell that person? Go make wudu. Okay, and I use that specific example because some people, they use the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that don't leave your salah until you smell and tajid rihan or tasma sultan, that you smell something or hear something. They know that they passed wind, but they didn't hear or smell anything, they stay in their place. No. This is for a person who doesn't know. If you're 100% sure, khalas. You're 100% sure that you lost your wudu, you lost your wudu. Tayyib. What if a person doubts he married a woman? In this case, they may not take part in sexual intercourse due to the ruling of prohibition. On the other hand, if he doubts whether he divorced his wife or not, then it means he has not, and they may take part in sexual intercourse due to their marriage. That one, some of you may be thinking, what do you mean a person's doubtful, did he marry his wife or not? We're not talking about a person who woke up next to a woman, is she married to me or not? La. For example, a guy and a girl, they're not religious, okay? Allah, they wanted to get married, their family said no, so they went to a marriage celebrant and they done the marriage. Okay? They went to a marriage celebrant and they done the marriage. No, like a non-Muslim one. A civil marriage. Okay, no witnesses, no mahar, no wali, no nothing. They done a civil marriage. They want to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they're still together. So they say, okay, we got married civilly. Is that Islamically valid? Yes or no? If they say we're not sure, obviously it's not. They say we're not sure. For them, what happens with that marriage? Are they allowed to remain together? No, they're never married. Okay? The fact that they have doubt, you say abstain from one another. Abstain from one another until you go and verify. Same thing if a case comes to you and they say, look, this happened, you're like, I don't even know if your marriage is valid. Let's say a guy comes to you and he says, Akhi, I got married and her wali was there and there was 2 witnesses, but we never done any mahar. And they're asking you, is our marriage valid? And you say, Allahu Alam, I don't know. So you should advise them, stay away from each other for now until you verify. Ask a person of knowledge, is the marriage still valid even if a mahar wasn't placed? And then once they get the answer, then they can go back together. So if you're ever unsure if the marriage was correct or not, you verify first and then they can go back together. The answer is yes, the marriage is still valid, no problem, inshallah. But he still has to pay the mahar, and if they can't agree on it together, then she gets what is customary to the people around her. Tayyib. If they're sure that he's divorced his wife, okay? If they're sure that he's divorced a wife, tab'an, this there's no question about. If he can't remember if he divorced his wife or not, or he's unsure what he said, brother, that way. The qibla is that way. Yeah. Don't worry, it happens all the time, no problem. Qibla is that way. Always happens, subhanAllah. If a person is unsure if they divorced their wife or not, so a person was arguing with his wife, if he said, like he's arguing and he said, you're divorced, not punched, like for easy and stuff, for the police, okay? He just said you're divorced, okay? This person, he says you're divorced, and he says, Sheikh, I know 100% I said I'm divorced. but I was angry. He said, did you know what you were saying? He said, yes, I knew what I was saying. We said, khalas, you're divorced. There's no question. Okay? But if he says, wallah, I was arguing and we were saying words and I don't know if I divorced my wife or not. Say, okay, what did she say? She says, oh, look, she says I didn't divorce her, or she doesn't know. What do we say to him? Then the asl is that you're still married. Because the marriage is certain and the divorce is questionable. It's uncertain. It's doubtful. So you go back to certainty. But obviously if they know, because a lot of people, they try and use this to try and say that they're married. SubhanAllah, some people, even if you fool the sheikh in the dunya, in the hereafter, who's going to stand in front of you? No one. You're going to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by yourself. So be very careful when you try and fool a sheikh or a judge. Okay, but if a person is sure that he divorced, done, finished. If a person is doubtful, he doesn't know, then you go back to that which you're certain about, and that's that, you're still married. Likewise, if one doubts the validity of his wudu, whether it has been broken or not, after he was certain he was in a state of wudu, or vice versa, or he doubts the number of prayer units, number of circumambulations around the Kaaba, sa'i, throwing the pebbles at the jamarat, etc., then he carries out based on the previous certainty, and it is the minimum. Example. A person made wudu, and when he walked out of the bathroom, like he looked at his hands, his right hand, mashallah, is wet, and his left hand is dry. So now he's questioning, did I wash my right hand? Because there's no water on it. The fact that he doubts whether he washed his right hand or not, what does that mean?
His original is not did, but now he's done.
What's certain? That he made wudu or not made wudu?
He's certain, but it's dry.
He's certain he hasn't done it yet.
He hasn't done it because it's dry.
What was he doing wudu for? Because he had wudu or he didn't have wudu. So he's certain that he doesn't have wudu. That's why he's making wudu. Now he doubts, did he wash all of the limbs of wudu properly or not? When he doubted, he has to go back to what? Certainty. So that's that. No, you didn't wash that part. Go back and wash there and continue from there. You have to go back to what you're certain on to clear up the doubtful. Okay? And vice versa, if a person, he 100% knows he had wudu, 100% knows he had wudu, like we said at the beginning, but then he questions, did I lose my wudu or not? Now you go back to what you're certain about, which is that you had wudu. Just be very careful when it comes to this, so it doesn't lead to what? Waswas. Be very careful. Okay? That's why I gave a clear-cut example. A person, his left hand was washed, and his right hand was completely dry. This is very unnatural to happen. Okay? How did this hand get completely washed, and this it's all wet, and this hand completely dry? That's unnatural. Okay, so there's a sign there that you didn't do your wudu. If it's something that's always in your mind, you leave the bathroom, and there's nothing to tell you haven't completed your wudu. Did I wash my nose, yes or no? Don't give in to that. The second you give in to that, what's going to happen? Waswas is going to start. Waswas is going to start. I've got to talk on waswas, go listen to it. Okay? But a quick step, two quick steps. Number one, when you're doing the act, make sure you do it properly. You take your time, make sure you do it properly. Number two, when you finish the act, don't think about it anymore. Okay, so the shaitan doesn't play, especially with religious people. We've mentioned this before. Especially with religious people, the shaitan uses waswas to get to them. If he can't get you to commit zina and drink alcohol and gamble, and then, he'll get you to go to things where your ibadat are mixed up and they become hard for you, like waswas. So don't fall for that trick. However, the basic rule can be vague. Same thing as well with salah. And you're praying and you're not sure, was it 3 rakat or 4 rakat? You go down to what you're certain about, and that is 3. Always the lesser number. However, the basic rule can be vague with respect to returning to it when doubt appears. As such, there is a need to mention several principles related to specific rulings. So these are some specific examples and instances and cases that fall under al-yaqinu la yazulu bil-shak. And these are all, again, fiqh principles. The basic rule regarding things is purity. If a person's body or clothing is touched by water or moisture, or he steps on dung, everyone knows, number 2, or bones fall into water, and he doubts its purity or its impurity, then he should consider it pure in following the basic rule, even if he thinks it is more likely to be impure. This is because it is pure until he can verify it is impurity. Everything is in dunya, everything in this dunya is considered pure until it's proven to be impure. For example, this carpet. Do you know exactly where it came from? No, no one knows exactly where it came from. So you consider it what? Pure until you prove that it's impure. Okay? This is important in places like parks where people are going to play on the grass or play on the dirt or play on the concrete. When you go there, the grass, the dirt, the concrete is considered what? Pure until it's proven impure. Because some people they think, oh, we don't want to pray here just in case a dog done something here. Just in case we're not worried about. That just in case we open up doors for what? For swears. Okay? So the asl is that things are pure until proven impure. Jayyid. Do you have to go in depth to say something pure or impure? The asl is no. The asl is that no, you don't. But if you have reasonable doubt, then yes. If you have reasonable doubt, then verify. An example is when you're buying, for example, let's say couches. We know a lot of the leather is made from what? From pig. So if you go to companies where you have actual reasonable doubt that this could be pig leather, then you can easily ask, is this what leather is this from? They told you it's from pig, okay, you're not going to buy it. It's not just, not going to buy it. But if it's from beef or whatever, beef. If it's from a cow or whatever it is, you can tell I'm hungry. Alhamdulillah. Okay. If it's from a cow, from cowhide, then khalas, you can use a nation. The basic rule regarding foods is that they are lawful. Let's say a person got you, like someone bought you a leather jacket, and there's no way for you to find this out. There's no way for you to find out is it tahir or not. The asal is what? That it's tahir. The basic rule regarding foods is that they are lawful. We're going to have to explain this one, inshallah. The basic rule regarding foods is that they are lawful. This is because Allah the Most High created for His creation all that is on the earth in order to benefit from by eating, drinking, etc. And He permitted this to them. As such, no foods or drinks are prohibited except what Allah and His Messenger prohibited. The Shaykh didn't put here the exception to the rules. There's one big exception to this. What's that? Meat. The majority of ulama say the exception to this rule is meat. The meat has to be halal in order for you to eat it. So if you see meat or there is meat, you can't just assume that it's halal. You have to ensure that it's halal. I'm going to explain details, okay? Inshallah. If I go now to any butcher, not a halal butcher, a normal butcher, and he's got meat there, do I automatically assume it's halal or haram? The majority of ulama, they say you assume that it's haram, it's maita, until you prove that it's halal. Okay? The level of proof we're going to get to, inshallah. But you assume it's maita. You go to a restaurant, and they don't have halal sign, forget halal signs. It's just a restaurant, they sell steak. Your automatic assumption is that it's haram, and to prove it halal. This is the exception to this rule. Tayyib. How do you verify something is halal? If they are Muslims, you don't ask. If they're Muslims, then after the Prophet said, if your brother puts you food, you eat, you don't ask. He puts you drink and you don't ask. Okay? If he's a Muslim, the asl is husn al-dhan. That's the asl. Husn al-dhan bil Muslim. Okay, that you think good of him. So when he's giving you something, he's giving you food. And even if he was on a different opinion, like let's say he said, I believe that all meat in Australia is halal. There's that fatwa. Okay? Don't take it. I'm saying if a person was on that opinion, we respect difference of opinion when it's valid. That's on his neck. Okay, just like if he was on the opinion that something doesn't break the wudu, and you believe it breaks the wudu, you still have to pray behind him because he's fulfilled what's on him, and he's followed someone who's worthy of being followed. Okay, so even if he was on another opinion, you ate, and this was from the ignorance and the arrogance of some people, where ayathan billah, they got to a point where they'll go to a Muslim's house and they'll ask, where's your chicken from? Or where's your meat from? You went directly against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is al-isa'a lil-akharin. This is bad manners, bad etiquette. This is doing wrong to others. You're already questioning a person's deen, subhanAllah. People that they would pray Fajr together, they would stop eating at each other's houses. Allah musta'an. Okay, so this was caused a lot of issues. Hadana Allah Azza wa Jalla wa iyyahum. So if a person that's trustworthy tells you it's halal, and it's enough. Let's say the restaurant tells you our food is halal, and you have no reason to question is it halal or not. Then again, you can eat from the inshallah, no issue. As long as there's no doubt or there's no reasonable doubt for you to think is it halal or not. If you know or you have doubt that okay, maybe they cook the bacon and the beef together, or they store it together, or they cook with halal, haram ingredients like alcohol, etc. Then that's a different story. But if you don't have reason to doubt, then you can take from them, inshallah, no issue. What about the fatwa that all the chicken is, or all the meat in Australia is halal?
Chicken.
No, there's all the meat is halal. It used to be all the chicken, now it's all the meat in Australia is halal. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into the details just for time. But يعني fiqh wise, it doesn't hold up extremely well. Fiqh wise, it doesn't hold up very well. Anyways, when it says halal, it's halal. Questions at the end. Oh, okay. Allahu alam. I don't know anything specific about the judge. Allahu alam. I'm not sure about all the chicken. But the simple rule, if it says halal, eat it. No, you don't have to get into things. But if all the chicken in Australia is halal, Allahu alam. That's a big statement. Yani. That's a big statement. There's non-Muslims that work in these places that slaughter at some companies that they told you we're not halal. But they look at it yani, because of the Ahl Kitab and the whole thing. Maybe if we have time at the end, inshallah, we'll get to it. But if you work off this principle, that everything is halal until proven haram, this is for general matters in dunya, okay, general food in dunya, etc. But that which, the exception to this rule is the meats. This is the exception to the rule. The basic rule, this is where qiyas comes in. Okay, qiyas. When you study usul al-fiqh, you have Quran, Sunnah, Ijma'. These are the three primary principles. And then the fourth, besides the Zahiriyah, I'm not joking. Okay, you've got qiyas. Okay, and this is where you bring an analogy. Okay, this is haram for this reason, and this has the same reasons in it, or the same things in it, as haram. Anyone Fiji Indian here? No Fiji Indian? Anyone been to Fiji? They got like the kava. Okay, you tried the kava when you were there? No, alhamdulillah, good. Okay, so a lot of, even the Muslims, they'll drink that kava drink. So it's like something they do, I don't know, with roots and water, and I don't know, they mix it all up. So it's an intoxicant, yeah, it gets you smashed. Okay? Now a lot of people drink it because it's not called alcohol. But it gets you intoxicated just like alcohol gets you intoxicated. So this is, taban, it's not allowed. But like a lot of people have it because they think it's a normal drink. Okay, or it's not called alcohol. We apply the same rulings. It's not like, well, no, it's halal until proven haram. Okay, but we can prove that it's haram through qiyas on alcohol. The basic rule regarding sexual intercourse is prohibition. Sexual intercourse is not permitted except in cases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam have permitted. That is marriage or slave ownership, which is based on the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Most High. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ إِلَّا عَلَى أَزْوَاجِهِمْ أَوْ مَنْ مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ غَيْرُ مَلُومِينَ فَمَنِ ابْتَغَى وَرَاءَ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْعَادُونَ. And those who guard their private parts except from their wives or those who their right hand possess, for indeed they are not to be blamed. But whoever seeks beyond that, then they are transgressors. So any form of intimacy outside of your spouse or with a male, with a female slave, then this is obviously haram and it's zina. Which means that some of those brothers that try and halil somehow relations between them and other people, I don't know how, but they try, it doesn't work. They're not your wife, according to Sharia guidelines, nor are they a slave. And slavery, by the way, slavery doesn't just happen like you go to some places and you pay for half an hour and she acts like your slave. That's not what slavery is. Okay? Slavery is there's guidelines for it. It will usually happen in war. Okay, there's prisoners of war. Those prisoners of war are taken back to the Islamic State. The Islamic State, the Islamic government, the Amir, he is the one who does what he believes to be best for the Muslim Ummah with the slaves, with the prisoners of war. Some may be killed. Some may be freed. Some may be ransomed. Give us X amount of money or services and we'll let them free. Some might become slaves. Okay, it's not just wallah, a person decides. Like some brothers, they actually say, I've heard that they take them as prisoners of war, like here. Ayadhan billah, this is from the extreme takfiris. So these people would make takfir on the takfiris. Okay? And brothers that I know were with them, this is what they told me. And these got like 100% trustworthy brothers. They said they would make takfir on Muslim girls, ayadhan billah, on Muslim girls, and then they'll say they take them as like war booty and they become slaves. And so you can imagine how sick these people are, subhanAllah. It doesn't just work like that. You're not the one that does it. The Amir does it. The Khalifa does it. Not the Amir of your address, Allah yahdik, even you can't leave your house without your mom giving you a smack. And does that to Muslim girls, Allah musta'an. The second way is that they're born into slavery. Okay, so their parents are slaves, and then they have children. Those children are born into slavery. If the father gets his slave pregnant, she becomes al-walad, they become free when the father passes away. That's a whole different subject. If doubt occurs in any given circumstance, is sexual intercourse permitted or not, the basic rule is prohibition until we verify its lawfulness. Same thing, for example, when a woman is on her menses, you can't sleep with her until you're sure she finished her menses, etc. The basic rule regarding the life of the protected citizen, his wealth and honor is prohibited. As such, these are not lawful except when they are taken by right. That is, the basic rule regarding the protected citizen, and he is either a Muslim, a dhimmi, disbeliever. A dhimmi is a person who's a non-Muslim that pays the jizya and he lives in the Muslim land and he has rights. He's allowed to implement his religion, he's protected, etc., etc., etc. Regarding either a Muslim, a dhimmi, disbeliever, or one who has a covenant of security, is that his wealth, life, and honor is sacred. And it is not permissible to take any of these things in any circumstance until we verify the lawfulness to do so. And we cannot verify the lawfulness of such a matter except by a specific legal text, that is the Quran or Sunnah. It is not permissible for an Islamic government to take the life of a Muslim except the married person who commits adultery in case of a life for a life, or that of one who exits the religion of Islam. Likewise, a protected citizen who is a disbeliever, it is not permissible for the Islamic government to kill him or cut any of his limbs except for a reason that necessitates it in the Sharia. If you have a Muslim, damuhu maluhu wa irduhu haram. His blood, his wealth and his honor is haram. You're not allowed to touch anything from his blood and harm him physically, or take from his wealth, or take from his honor and talk about him, etc., except with right. And where does that right come from? From the Sharia. For example, someone thinks another person is talking to his cousin or sister or niece or nephew or whatever it may be. Someone thinks that they're talking to him. So they say, okay, I'm going to go and teach this guy a lesson. Is it halal or haram? Haram. Okay. Someone, for example, goes for a divorce. Him and his sister, they went for a divorce. And the guy says, okay, you upset my sister, أنا فرجيك. And he goes, وبنزل فيه. Halal or haram? Haram. Someone has an argument over a car sport, and then he gets a gun and he shoots him. Halal or haram? Haram. Don't mess with Bill when it comes to a park. Let him go. The same applied, this is also with the non-Muslims. Okay, this also applies to the non-Muslims. The Prophet ﷺ, when it comes to Dar al-Harb, I mentioned this as an important note. When it comes to Dar al-Harb in fiqh, if you want to fight Dar al-Harb after they've let you in on the agreement of safety, you have to leave the citizens and then claim, openly show that you're enmity and that you're taking them to war, and then you fight them. You're not allowed to do al-ghadr. You're not allowed to enter Dar al-Harb with the protection and the agreement that I'm safe, and then from internally you do something against them. It's not allowed. So that's another lesson for the takfiris. And again, wallah, if they only read books of fiqh, and they studied that with people who knew how to teach the books of fiqh, they wouldn't have an issue. But the problem with all of these people, not just the extreme takfiris, the Ahl al-Bid'ah, whoever it is, people that make TikTok videos, if only they had studied with people that are worthy of taking off the basics of what they're saying, they would see that which they quote is actually against them and not for them. But this is from the dangers of the Khawarij. And this is one of the meanings when the Prophet ﷺ, and the Khawarij and the people that are like the Khawarij, it's one of the meanings of when the Prophet ﷺ said that the Quran does not go past their throats, that they have no understanding of the Quran. This is one of them. They read. But where's the understanding of it? Mafish. The same applies to the wealth of the Muslim, the dhimmi, and whoever has a covenant of security. None of it is lawful except for a Sharia-based right. And the same applies to their honor. For example, a person came to abuse you and you can't hurt him. Barakallahu fiqh. That's a different story. A person came to rob you in your house and you had the ability to stop them and you did. Okay, you have right. Not in Australia. In Australia, you have to make sure the floor's dry so they don't slip over for them. Allah, HNS, they come to rob your shop and they harm the in your shop. As they're robbing your shop, they can sue you. Wallahi. Shows you how crazy people are. SubhanAllah. The details of one of the most beautiful things of the Sharia is that it's so easy to understand. If a person wants to come and to study the laws of Tarayyah, what the heck is all of this? It's a female friend, I can't call her a she. Let's make it that last week. The details of the Sharia rights regarding lives, wealth and honor are a great many. It's not possible to mention them all in this short work, but the fuqaha have spoken of these matters in the books of fiqh and rulings are referred to them. Wallah, if you guys were fortunate and you were able to have a person who was strong in fiqh, mashallah, Sheikh Ahmed does fiqh lessons here, so you can benefit. But you're able to go through books of fiqh from start to finish, and then the next one start to finish, the next one start to finish. Wallahi, if going overseas just for that reason was the only reason you had, it's worth it. And any one of you can get to a stage where they learn even the basics of Arabic, and they're able to go build on it, and just study the books of fiqh with mashaykh and ulama overseas. I'm telling you, you will look at yourself and say, how did I ever speak about Islam? How did I ever give a fatwa? How did I ever talk? How did I ever talk badly about the opinion? How you freak out because of how much you learn. But subhanAllah, whenever you read books of the fuqaha, it's amazing. Allah Azza wa Jalla make us from the people who understand and implement His religion properly. The basic rule regarding acts of worship is one of prohibition. Therefore, nothing is legislated in the religion except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated. You can't do innovations. In matters of dunya, everything is halal until proven haram. In matters of deen, everything is haram until proven halal. Okay? So I can't say, I'm going to do a new salah, or I'm going to do a special type of dua and get a special reward. Or I can't say, go to a certain place and if you pray here, you get this blessing. You're not allowed to do that except with evidence. The basic rule regarding customary acts is one of lawfulness. This is a big one in terms of culture. Okay? Therefore, nothing customary is prohibited except for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. And that's what we're going to speak about a lot more next week, inshallah. If something's from your custom to do, that customarily that's what they wear. Customarily that's what they eat. Customarily that's how they celebrate. All of it is halal until proven haram. Okay? So, for example, in certain cultures they do walima 3 days. And there's nothing in the Sharia that say you can't do walima for 3 days, then there's no issue. You can do your walima for 3 days, no problem. If in your custom, the norm is that you live with your parents, there's nothing haram until proven, there's nothing wrong with it until you prove it haram. Or that you live in your own house, or that the mahar is in a certain amount. All of it is halal until proven haram. طيب هذا والله أعلم صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.